Yes, your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another episode of My 2 Cents. This morning, we're looking at, man, this thing is spreading, people. Now we've got India, their repo market going crazy. Their T-bill yields drop below repo rates. We'll take a look at that and what that actually means. And the media is really not covering, the mainstream media, just not covering this stuff. So we're going to take a look at what's going on with the Indian bond yields, the debt markets, and also Chile. Chile is going through some crazy things. They've got riots all over the place. One of the guys that I've interviewed on my channel before, Da Vinci J15, he's been on my show a couple of times actually. He lives out in Chile, and he's like, man, do I have to leave? It's so bad. And these civil unrests are only symptoms of financial issues, the decay of the financial system in these countries. We don't quite see that here, just because I think we have some of the most unaware citizens in the world, and I think there's some varying reasons why, but you don't see those types of riots and upheavals like that yet. They're coming though. I think they're definitely coming. So we're gonna take a look at what's going on in India, Chile, and something that the Minnesota Fed president said. It's getting too bad here. We have to redistribute the wealth. This is from an actual Fed president, people, saying that it's getting so bad that the wealth needs to be redistributed. So we'll look at that as well. And I just want to kind of paint a picture here of the severity and how bad it's getting. We're getting to cold blue. I've told you guys, cold blue in the financial markets. I'm just presenting the facts, and you make your own decisions up on how to deal with those facts. But you know the routine. Make sure you click the thumbs up, losers, click the thumbs down, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click that notification bell to receive more videos like this. And as I've stated, out of Zero Hedge, Fed's Kashkari says it's time for the Federal Reserve to start redistributing wealth. I can't believe this is coming out the mouths of a actual Federal Reserve president. And I believe that Neel Kashkari is actually out of he's a Fed president for the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. And just to be honest with you, I'm really shocked that he's actually come out and admitted that publicly. Many of them know this privately. They won't say that publicly, but just to see that he has means a lot, I think. But the article says it may come as a surprise to some younger Americans, but the U.S. did not always have income tax. In fact, one of the main catalysts behind the American Revolution and resulting War of Independence was a colonial protest against British taxation policies in the 1760s. Then, in the beginning, the independent nation collected taxes on imports, whiskey, and for a while on glass windows, even as states and localities collected poll tax on voters and property taxes on land and commercial buildings. In addition, there were state and federal excise taxes, but all throughout, there was no official income tax for nearly a century and a half. So, yet while the United States imposes income taxes briefly during the Civil War and in the 1890s, but it was not until the 16th Amendment was ratified that the U.S. permanently legalized a federal income tax in 1913, which, what do you know, same year, the Federal Reserve, the one that Neel Kashkari works for, same year they were created. Incidentally, it says that was the same momentous year just before the start of the World War I that another milestone event in U.S. history took place. The birth of the Federal Reserve. Just said that. Shortly thereafter, states also began collecting sales taxes in 1930. So now we fast forward to 2019 when, after a decade of unprecedented inequality spurred by the Federal Reserve's policies, which made the rich richer and the poor and middle classes poor to the point that just 1% of the U.S. population now owns as much wealth as the middle and lower classes combined. So get to the meat and potatoes of this actual article about Neel Kashkari. It says, as Bloomberg News reports today, Neel Kashkari, the former Goldman employee who was instrumental in the drafting of TARP and the bailout of the United States financial system, an outspoken dove at the Minneapolis Fed, said that monetary policy can play the kind of redistribution role once thought to be the preserve of elected officials. And as Bloomberg notes, while that likely remains a minority view among U.S. central bankers, Kashkari has helped lay the groundwork for a shift in Fed communication this year. And so the Bloomberg article then launches into an extended report of just how Kashkari hopes to legitimize his effort of elevating the Fed to the rank of supreme U.S. despot and emperor's circle of unelected career economists who take central planning in the U.S. to a level of USSR never even conceived of. And we are confident readers can go through it on their own, especially since it includes such phrases as paradigm shift, quote unquote, which is what the Bloomberg writer decided to throw in to indicate just how above average reader he himself is. What we will say is this: Trickle-down economics has failed every single time. And it's funny because I was just talking about this on a previous My 2 Cents video where I was comparing what we have now with QE, TARP, QE 1, 2, 3, and now QE 4. They call it not QE, but we know it's QE 4, Operation Twist. All these programs that the Federal Reserve has done in the past 10 years since the initial economic collapse. These systems, these policies have all been trickle down economic. It's starting to really bubble its head, which is MMT, which is the bottom up economics. Injecting cash, still, I think, a solution that will inevitably implode on itself. But now we're looking to swing the pendulum to the other extreme where we're we're printing money and injecting it directly into the economy, into the hands of the people. And then letting it kind of flow that way, which, like I told you guys in that video, pick your poison. I'd rather pick that poison pill than trickle down, where the rich get it first, and by the time it gets to the normal middle class and working class, the money has been inflated so far that it does nothing for us. So hell, if we're gonna do it, inject it right into the hands of the people. So I'll leave this article for you guys to read in its entirety.
Yet, always in my mind, I seem to feel the creature is lurking somewhere close at hand.
Protect my gangster!
And let's get our lurk.com on really quickly. I love these comments in Zero Hedge. This guy, Eyes of Horus, says that it's time to dump the Fed altogether. They've done nothing but mess up the economy with their manipulations and controls. They do nothing to help. Central banks are a pox on the citizens of any country. Definitely, but how do we do that? How do we get rid of the Fed? I think our political system has been hijacked so badly that we would never even have the opportunity to vote for something like that. It would never get past even our representatives. It would never get to the Senate or House. It wouldn't. That's how messed up our political system is. So these types of solutions are just unrealistic in my opinion. You guys let me know. Got Galt said the Fed is already directly monetizing U.S. debt, so that ship has sailed. Uncle Jeff says something pretty profound here. If we redistribute all the wealth in the country equally among all U.S. citizens, within 10 years we'd be back to the same wealth disparity we have now. Some people know how to manage money and most don't. Most people who win lottery jackpots are broke within 5 years. Interesting take on that, and he's telling the truth. To be honest with you, he is really telling the truth. Here's a comment from Balance Sheet that actually supports Neel Kashkari's view. It says, this is an extremely positive report and indicates Mr. Powell should step down in favor of Mr. Kashkari. The Federal Reserve is the key institution on rolling out MMT financing for the USG. The goal is to prevent mass poverty across the U.S., which is being created by rapidly advancing technology. People will simply be advanced the amount of currency required to live decently if they choose to. And again, this is going the MMT route, and UBI and all that type of stuff only works for a minute. It's another type of band-aid, maybe on the other side of the spectrum, but still does not actually heal the economy, heal the system. The system is broken. I don't think MMT and UBI and those types of programs are really going to fix anything. Alice the dog says redistributing wealth has been the major function of the Federal Reserve since its inception in 1913, along with the income tax and the destruction of state sovereignty by the 17th Amendment in the same year. Now one of the sociopaths in charge is thinking about redistributing in the other direction. Virtue signaling at its finest. Unlikely to happen. Yeah, I don't know, man, but good comments. Always entertaining for sure. You guys let me know your thoughts on some of those comments in the Zero Hedge article. And from another article on the net, talks about what happened just this past Wednesday, that the FOMC authorized more stimulus intervention, which was done using two different repo schemes. Reports revealed that the NY Fed purchased all of the securities it was offered by injecting $87.95 billion in overnight repos and another $21 billion in 15-day repos. This is getting out of control. Wednesday's stimulus pump was a grand total of $108.95 billion into the American financial system, and the New York Fed thinks operations like this will continue until mid-2020. But I bring up this whole article because even other people from other Fed branches, Federal Reserve branches, are starting to say, look, this is getting out of control. And this is out of the St. Louis Fed. And they're saying this type of policy often ends in economic ruin. No shit, Sherlock. Even economists that work within the Feds. And again, this is coming from St. Louis, people. We just saw what Neel Kashkari talked about. and how he wants to try to go the other way. Now we've got people out of the St. Louis Fed. It just is not looking good. It looks like there may start to be some infighting because people even in the Fed are starting to get fed up, pun intended on that one. Scott Waller of the St. Louis Fed and Caitlin Firkin from the University of Missouri in their latest research paper stated that the U.S. government debt is currently on an unsustainable path. Trends that are unsustainable will not continue because the economy will adjust, sometimes in abrupt and jarring ways. So you see what's happening here, people. So this is what's going on here in the States. But what I really wanted to show you guys is what's going on around the globe and how this is really starting to spread here. We've got Chile central bank to intervene as the peso hits record lows. The Chile's central bank announced it was intervening in its currency market after the peso fell to a record low for the second consecutive day. The bank will sell as much as 10 billion on the spot market and provide as much as 10 billion of currency hedges, according to a statement on its website Thursday. Policymakers will inject liquidity into the system through swap and repo operations. Do you hear that? Policymakers will inject liquidity into the system through swap and repo operations. It's spreading, people. And to the main article that I wanted to cover today was about what's going on in India. T-bill yields dropped below repo rates for the first time in over 2 years. One of the managing directors and chief executive officers at Aditya Birla Sun Life, AMC, said though banks are sitting on cash, they are opting to play it safe and invest in government securities rather than in industry. In an indication of how risk-averse banks are, the yield on the 364-day T-bill auctioned on Wednesday came in at around 5.1389%, below that of the repo rate of 5.15%. Bloomberg data shows this last happened in April of 2017, or more than over 2.5 years ago. Article goes on to say that loan growth dropped to a 2-year low of 7.9% year on year in the fortnight to November 9th. Given that banks have dropped their deposit rates sharply and by a bigger amount than they have lowered their loan rates, their margins will not be affected. So we're starting to see credit freezing in India. We're starting to see repo operations go down in Chile. It's spreading, people. We need to be aware of this, and I'm here to point it out. I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and give me a comment in the section below about all of these topics today, and we'll have that discussion. It's your boy Crypto Blood. That's my 2 cents for today. I'm out of here. How?